Good.
All right, back in. All right, perfect. All right, so this part is just going to be your first part of the entire presentation, which is showing up to the home, meet and greet with the customer. There's a couple things that are important on the meet and greet, right? So first thing I like to do when I get there is I like to have notepad, clipboard, something like this so I can jot some notes down. Usually I'll have a tape measure on my hip just in case there's a little part or something I got to measure up that didn't come right on the satellite imaging report, right? So from that point, I'm going to introduce myself. Good afternoon, Mr. Williams. How are you? Lee Guerrero, Bentley Roofing. How you doing today?
Good.
Great. Mr. Williams, what I would like to do, I'm here to take a look at the roof, correct?
Take a look at the roof. Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Was there any other products of concern?
No.
Just the roof at
Just
this
the
time?
roof.
Okay, great. So looking at the roof. And when you say the roof, was it the entire
Yes.
roof? Okay. So would you mind coming outside with me for a second here? I want to actually do a walk around of the property. Okay. I would like to get a layout of the land, and I would also like to notice, see if I notice anything on the roof, as well as understand what prompted the call.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Great. So we get outside, right? So now, two things I'm going to talk about outside other than the roof we're going to do. So Ken, when we're actually scraping this material off the roof, everything's going to be going into a dumpster, okay, that will be hauled away the following day typically. But one of the important things to talk about is placement of the dumpster, right? The best for us is to be able to put it on the driveway, right? So it's easily accessible for the guys. Is there any restrictions on the property as far as where in the driveway I could place the dumpster?
No, you can put it wherever you want.
Driveway's good?
Driveway's good.
Fantastic. All right, great. Now, taking it a step further, as we're scraping down the asphalt shingles, they're very, very heavy, right? So what we do is we actually protect the property with tarps that will be draping over the property as the installation is going on. The purpose of the tarp is just to guide the shingle generally to an area we want them to go, right? But walking around the property here, is there any area of particular concern that you have that you would like a little extra protection added to as we're removing everything down?
Just my wife's garden in the back.
Wife's garden in the back. Can we go take a look at that, please?
Yeah.
Great. Now, side note, what you're going to be doing here, you're taking a picture of it. On your general condition sheet, you are making sure you're putting a note about that garden. Because believe me, they tell you garden, you forget to tell somebody garden, first thing you're going to see in a complaint. We specifically talked about this on the day of the appointment and he didn't do it, right? So extremely important, anything expressed here translates to your form, right? Now from that point, what I like to do is I like to understand why you brought us out here, right? So I want to see what's going on in your mind and why you believe that at some point you have to change this roof. So I'd say something along the lines of, so Cam, tell me a little bit about your roof in a sense of what prompted the call? What was really making you think about getting some estimates on a roof right now?
Well, I've been here for about 10 years and I'm thinking about just some preventive care before it turns even worse.
Preventative. Okay, so when you say turns even worse, what's going on right now that's not
a little
so
bit of
good?
leaking.
Oh, you do have a leak.
A little bit of leaking.
Okay, a little bit of leak.
During heavy rains.
All right, little leak, heavy rain. Cam, how long has this been going on, this leak?
Since last summer.
Oh, wow. Okay, since last summer. And what steps of corrective action have you taken to try to stop the leak, if any?
My buddies went up there and he's fastened down a couple of the shingles.
Tighten some shingles up?
Some shingles up. That's about it though.
Okay. When was the last time you had someone touch the roof or work on it?
Oh, last summer.
Last summer? Okay. And when did it start leaking again?
Oh, the last big storm we had.
Okay. All right. Last storm. So that lasted about 9 months, 8 months, the repair? Okay.
Like you get the email from our.
Wouldn't it be nice just to alleviate and eliminate these headaches?
Yes.
Just put this thing to rest?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's why you're looking to just chop it. You don't want to just keep messing with this thing over and over again, right? So it's safe to say you're not looking for a temporary fix this time. You're looking for a permanent solution?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just a one and done?
Yeah, I'm gonna use that.
Understand.
Not hauling around there.
So Kim, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, looking at the roof, was there any areas other than the leak that you noticed that maybe just seemed a little abnormal to you, or maybe a little more wear and tear you were noticing on the roof that you could tell?
No.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, how old is this roof?
I've been here 10 years. I'm not sure how long it's been here.
Oh, so at least 10 years,
Yeah.
right? Okay, 10 years plus. Gotcha. So you're not sure how many layers you have up there or anything like that? Okay. Okay. Now let me ask you another question. Now I see you have the 2 floors here. Do you notice a higher temperature on the second floor in the summertime? A noticeable difference?
Yes.
Okay. So upstairs is definitely noticeable. And there's an attic in the home?
Yes.
Okay. How often are you in the attic? Do you actually go up there?
Never.
Oh, you never go up there? Have you ever been?
Mm-mm.
Oh, get out of here. Oh, wow. Okay. Has anyone actually done an inspection on the attic for you? Oh, okay. Have you had an opportunity to see any roof manufacturers yet?
No.
Any materials? Okay. Okay, none yet. Okay. Is there any that you researched about that you had some interest in?
Gaff.
Gaff. Okay. All right. Gotcha. And what, if anything, in particular interested you about Gaff?
Just their colors.
Oh, you like the colors? Okay. When you say the colors, was it their standard color line?
Yes.
Standard color line. Okay. What color did you like the best?
It was like a green color.
Oh, the green. Okay. Yeah. Something a little bit different. Okay. So if you were to do the roof, do you think it's safe to say you'd end up putting a green shingle on?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Have you had an opportunity to see some of the other greens out there from the different manufacturers?
No.
Okay. Remind me when it comes time to go over the products. There's a couple different greens out there, but there's an absolutely gorgeous one from Owens Corning. Just don't let me forget. You got to see that shingle. It's beautiful. If you like green, this is going to be the one you're going to say, all right, put it on my house. Okay? But just don't let me forget. Okay? All right, fantastic. So you're definitely looking to put a green shingle on. All right, so moving on from there, you're noticing the heat. Okay, what about, do you feel any humidity in the home? Like on a hot day, like get out of the shower, trying to dry off, and you notice you're just not
Not drying off.
not drying off, it's kind of staying a little
In
bit.
the upstairs bathroom, not really
Upstairs?
downstairs.
Upstairs, okay. That's noticeable. Gotcha. Okay. And you have just the one leak you've noticed that we've discussed already. So let's take a look around at the exterior for a second. Now, pause for a second in the action. I got a lot of great dialogue out of you, right? Kind of got a general idea where you're at, what you're looking for, right? In a sense, you want to just replace it this time. You've already gone with a repair, and you want a once and done solution. And you've done a little homework, look at a Gaff product line, right? So now obviously we're an OC guy, okay? So I'm gonna have to show you why putting Gaff on your home is a bad decision, right? But the way I'm gonna go about it is gonna be more in an educational standpoint because I'm here to help you, right? So I'm helping you avoid making a bad decision by going with that Gaff shingle. One of the things you will deal with is people do like a certain color and they're kind of stuck on that color. But when they find out what they're actually gonna get with that color, they're never going to want to put it on their home, right? But that's what the process does. It takes care of that for them. All right, so moving on. I'm going to take a look up and say, oh, by the way, Cam, did you notice those shingles that are lifting? See those shingles lifting right there? Did you notice that was happening?
No, not really.
Okay. Do you have an understanding of why that happens?
Is it from the wind?
Well, it's a complicated thing, right? It's not the wind that starts the problem, okay? The problem is two things. One is the sealant on the shingles, they glue down to granules, right? And if you ever go to a downspout on your home from, in your gutters, what do you notice starts to wash off the roof over time?
Granules.
Granules, right? So if I'm gluing to a surface that's a temporary surface, how long does that really last?
Until the other surface lasts.
Exactly, right? So the problem, one of the challenges is your roof's getting a little older, those granules are starting to come loose, so now the surface that the glue was gluing to is now dissipating, right? So now that wind comes in and it's just nice and easy to lift. See what I mean? So it's just a combination of two things, okay? The second thing that contributes to that, which I've noticed, is that your roof does not have adequate ventilation, okay? One of the challenges on roof and shingles today is you have to make sure that an equal amount of fresh air can enter in down at the soffit that's going to exhaust at the top or at the ridge vent, right? And when and if this does not occur, there's too much humidity that actually builds up in the home and it reabsorbs into the building material. And as that starts to happen, everything starts to weaken on the system. It just breaks down the roofing system. So something to consider is when the ventilation is not correct on your roof, one of the biggest problems that you run into is the roof produces its own moisture. Does anyone ever explain this to you, how this happens? Okay, so let's just dive in it for just a second here. So if you look at your home, you have to remember your house has framing. You ever see a neighborhood built where before they put all the wood on, it has all the framing, right?
Yep.
It's the skeleton of the home. So every 16 inches or 20 inches or 24 inches, there's going to be a beam, right? A rafter. So the idea behind it is, you see this piece here, which is called your soffit, which is behind your gutter. It's kind of on the bottom. Notice how there's some vents in there? The reason that's vented is because that's supposed to allow fresh air to draw in to replace the air that's leaving at the top, right? So for an example, you see that house over there? You see that cut that they did and that raised little ridge on the ridge vent over there? Okay?
Yep.
So what that ridge vent does is just makes an equal cut all the way across the home. So as that hot air rises, because it's lighter than the cooler air, it actually replaces itself with cooler air that's pulling in from the soffit, right? But let's just say my ridge vent's this big and my intake's only this big. Am I going to be getting an effective use out of my ridge vent?
No.
Right? So I would have to have my soffit about the same size for it to be able to work at its max efficiency, right? Make sense?
Yep.
So one of the challenges that you have currently on your home is they want this thing fully vented, straight across, right? Look at your vents. You got one here, you're missing. You got another one here, you're missing. So if I were to put a ridge vent in, do you think they would work equally together? Right. So what happens when that occurs? Well, what happens is that they're looking for a 10-turn ratio per hour in your attic space to completely exhaust humidity, okay? So when you have too much exhaust, not enough intake, the max amount of movement is going to be based on the intake, right? When you have too much intake, not enough exhaust, it's the same situation, right? So what's required is an equal 50-50 balance between the two. That's what's going to allow fresh air to come in and exhaust and pump out that heat and moisture. Make sense?
Yes.
So now that you know, generally speaking, how ventilation is supposed to work on a roof, let's talk about the contributing factors of ventilation on your home. First factor that you're going to be dealing with is, unfortunately, we have bad weather, right? So you're going to have a combination in this region of snow and ice, which is going to cause some pooling water that backs up and gets under the shingle and wets things. You're going to have wind-driven rain, which we get these nasty windstorms, right? Blow some water under the shingles and wets things, right? That's weather, which is one source, okay, of moisture. The second source of moisture is going to be interior humidity. This is a big change from 20 years ago. 20 years ago, a lot of homeowners didn't have new replacement windows. They had the old original windows, and the number one complaint on old original windows were leaky and drafty, right? So as uncomfortable as it was on your pocket with your energy bills, or just from a comfort level in your home, it was actually a very healthy way to have your home by having places or gaps for that steam or humidity to just sweat from the home. So imagine, a family of 4. Everybody gets a shower, right? Then you got to cook them all a meal. Then you got to do laundry, right? So you're producing a lot of steam and humidity inside the home that now the new roofing system has to manage, because once you seal off all those openings, the only place left to go is up with the heat. And if that ventilation setup, kind of like the one that you have, is not a high flow setup, it's not meant to manage the storms plus that humidity, right? So you can see how you start to get a little bit of extra humidity building up, and it's just not getting out fast enough, so it's reabsorbing in the building materials, and again creating breakdown of the roofing system, right? Now there's one last one which a lot of people don't know about, and I use my cell phone to explain. Let's assume here this is my nail, okay? Here's my plywood, got a shingle on top, I'm gonna put a nail through, okay? Now on a roof like this roof, where looking at your measurement report, you're in the 20s, okay, about 24, 25 square, you're 400 fasteners a square for a standard 6-nail application. So that means that on your roof alone, you have almost 10,000 nails. The top of the nail sits on the outside, where it's freezing cold in the wintertime. The bottom part of the nail goes through and sits on the inside, which is getting hit with the warmth or the heat that's escaping from your home, right? So what happens here is it creates its own condensation. No different than, imagine if we had a bottle of water that was in the fridge, ice cold. Then we take it outside, out back on a 100-degree day. What forms on the outside of the bottle?
Water.
Water, right? Condensation. Why? Because it's what happens when heat and cold meet. So what do you think happens on those 10,000 nails that are sticking through the decking half an inch? What do you think forms down here?
Moisture.
Moisture, right? So now your roof not only has to handle storms, interior humidity, now it has to handle its own moisture, okay? So by not having a proper ventilation setup, you're allowing that extreme temperature difference, and it's actually accelerating the amount of moisture that the roof can create, right? So that's why ventilation is extremely important to have correct on your property. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the problem is when the ventilation's not right, things just start to break down, the wood gets a little softer, and it's just much easier for things to come apart, if it makes sense. And do you think adhesives work really well in high moisture environments?
No.
Right? It's really bad for them, okay? So part of those ventilation and part of the just breakdown of the shingle, it's a combination of which is allowing those shingles to start lifting, right? But what you're seeing is breakdown of the system. Now, that shingle's very heavy, and then the sun is actually baking that shingle back down. But what do you think happens in a wind-driven rainstorm on all those cups that you're seeing where the shingle's lifting? Do you think they lift a little more in the storm?
Oh, yes.
And as that lifts a little bit more, what do you think's getting in?
A lot more water.
A lot more water, right? And in the wintertime, what do you think gets under there?
Ice.
Ice. And do you think ice is any good for that roofing system?
No.
Absolutely not. It just accelerates the breakdown of everything, okay? So let's take a look over here. I notice you also have the black streaks building up, right, on the shingle. Okay, it's just another sign of breakdown of your roofing system, okay? You see that on older systems, not newer systems, obviously, right? Kind of goes without saying. Now, what about the edges of your roof? You see how your edges, the shingles are curling and cracking up on this edge here? Did you notice that?
Yeah, I just thought that was normal wear and tear.
Normal wear and tear? So on a roofing system, the most important part of the system when it comes to waterproofing is the perimeter, right? Because if that edge lifts, what else lifts? The next
The
shingle.
next shingle.
Right. So let's just say the edge of my roof, which is supposed to be a waterproof seal, is compromised. What's it allowing in when it rains?
Water.
And it's windy. Right? So by having that edge compromised there, do you think something might be able to run down the wall and get behind your siding?
Yes.
Right? Have you ever seen siding buckling before?
Yes.
Do you know why that happens? 2 reasons. You always see it on the sides of a house. Very common, right? Just drive around your neighborhood. I saw it on 30 houses coming in. It's a combination of 2 things. 1 is misnailing, and 2, there's water that runs down that wall. Okay? As that water runs down that wall, okay, it starts to rot the wood out that the siding's fastened to. And now you get windstorms coming in. And then windstorms start to pull on that siding, and it's actually pulling the siding loose because the nails are not biting in the wood anymore. It's just going into dry rotted wood. Right? Makes sense?
Yep.
So unfortunately, by this having this little issue here can cost you a much larger or cause you a much larger problem later, right? So making sure that those edges are tight and sealed is extremely important because it also protects your trim work and your siding, right? You see why that's important, Cam?
Yep.
Okay, great. So now let's take a look around this side of the house, okay? So I'm just taking my time and I'm going around the house and I'm looking at some stuff because I want you to truly understand what's going on, why it's happening. So when we get into products, this is all going to make sense, right? And you're truly going to understand the value of that product and how it can actually help you in your personal situation, right? So I get around the other side. Let's say we got that little roller coastering going on the ice and water barrier, that zone, right? Very common. You're going to see a little dip somewhere around there, or maybe around a pipe collar. Somewhere where ice and water goes, you tend to see damage, right? Hey Kim, let me ask you a question. Did you notice that little dip or waviness in the plywood right there?
No.
Okay. Do you understand where that comes from or why that happens?
Maybe someone was walking up on it up there.
Have you had anyone walk on it recently?
No, the kids sometimes.
The kids do? Okay. I would be very, very careful with that. And the only reason why I say that is, hey, look, I've seen professionals fall off a roof before. They do it every single day, and God forbid one little mistake, man, they get hurt pretty bad. Second thing, though, is when you tend to see wavy plywood, that's usually water damage, which is a very high probability it's rotted. So if you're heavy like me, I'm 240 pounds, I step on it, I'm going in, right? Down goes Frazier. So just be very careful walking on that because it may be very compromised, right? But do you have any idea what leads to that wood becoming compromised?
Water getting in.
Water getting in. Do you know how it gets in that location?
Wind-driven rain.
So in the general decking of the roof, very common is wind-driven rain, right? When you start to get within 2 feet, 2.5 feet of the gutter, what actually happens is something completely different called ice damming. You ever walk out in the wintertime and you look at your gutters and you're going to notice that they're covered in snow, right? And the snow always sticks up a little higher than the gutter, right? And then as that snow's melting off the roof, you'll notice that you start to get a little pile of snow kind of getting caught up right there. Do you know what that's called?
Ice dam.
It's called an ice dam, okay? So what a dam is something that actually restricts water from passing, right? So if that ice dam sits 4 inches higher than the gutter, which 4 inches of snow is very common, right? Then that means that the water has to travel to 4.5 inches high before it can actually spill over to drain off of your roof. What that does is creates pooling water. And that back pressure, that water just gets right underneath of those shingles, right? Now think of your average roof. You're talking about 10,000 nails on this job. No less than about 3,000 of those are going to go through ice and water, right? Or an ice and water zone, okay? So imagine you have 3,000 nails submerged in water. If there's not a proper seal around that nail or a waterproof membrane in that area, what do you think's getting in?
Water.
Easily, right? So on today's roofing systems, by building code, there is a requirement that there's a special product put there that can help against this issue from happening again, called ice and water. So just remind me when we get to ice and water, I'll be able to show you exactly how we can solve this problem and eliminate it right there. Okay? Now, where was the leak? Can you point me to the leak?
It was by the chimney.
By the chimney. Okay, let's take a look over there. Okay? One of the good tools you'll have is the phones. Zoom in, take a picture, kind of zoom in. Try to get a little idea from the ground of how it's looking around the chimney. Maybe it's not looking so hot, right? So I get around that chimney, take a look. So Cam, I can see what's going on with your chimney. I see that he put some roofing tar up there last time. Some muck? Okay. Has anyone ever explained to you the proper way to flash a chimney?
No.
Okay. All right, so one of the issues when you're dealing with a chimney is that you can have a leak around a chimney for several different reasons. Wind-driven rain, heavy rain, pooling water from snow and ice. It almost gets hit with everything, right? So there's actually what's called a triple seal that's made on a chimney, which is 3 different things that have to be applied while working on the chimney, okay? So one of those things is a special membrane we're going to get into called Ice and Water Shield, which is a waterproof membrane laminating the base of the chimney. Then you're going to have metal work, which is called flashing, right? Where the shingles run into the chimney and there's little angle bends of flashing on there. You can see a little of that on your chimney right now. But the last piece, what you're missing, is what's called counter flashing. And a lot of guys don't want to do it because they don't have the experience doing it and they're afraid to damage the chimney and create a bigger headache, right? What counter flashing is they use a tool called a Dremel drill with a diamond blade, and that blade cuts into the stone. It's a masonry blade, right? So you're grinding a 3/4 of an inch deep groove into that stone, and then you're actually going to lock a piece of metal. It's almost like a little L bend at the top. This locks right into that groove with sealant, right? So now when the water comes down, it's going to run straight down. Nothing can get behind it, right? So that's protecting your step flashing and your waterproof membrane. So that water running down the chimney is forced over and just wicks its way around and kicks away, right? Making sense?
Yo.
Yo, man. Nah, running through training. Okay?